All right, it's 9, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome to the workshop day 2, and today we're going to do our practical session. So we're going to give you a little bit intro into what that's going to look like today, and then we'll get right into the data pre-processing practical. So some logistics for the practical today. If you're using one of our lab's instances, you received an email from me last night with login instructions. If you're having difficulties with that, at this point, go ahead and email nextpyp.bartosagilab@duke.edu. That should be in the email I sent you. But if you reply to my email at this point, I'm talking, so I won't see it. Also, if you're bringing your own instance, you should have received an email with data download instructions and should have all that set. And then finally, we're going to have an additional help session today from 1:30 to 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time. So that'll be an hour after we wrap up the practical webinar. We will start a different Zoom meeting, which we'll put a link for that and the passcode in the chat for you to be able to access later to get help with running jobs and things. So the goals of the practical today, we want to teach you to use basic features of nextPYP. This is going to include our blocks like data import, pre-processing, particle picking in the pre-processing block, 3D refinement, and on-the-fly processing in sessions. And then you're also going to see examples of how to do this on a couple different types of data sets. So those data sets are going to include these 4 datas here. So Empire 10164 is immature HIV virus-like particles. 499 has the bacterial cells in situ. 987 is mouse epithelial cells in situ. And 304 are purified ribosomes. If you've looked at our tutorial data sets, you'll recognize 164 and 304. For the practical, we're using subsets of our tutorial data sets. That way things can run within 45-minute sessions. But if you did want to explore those full data sets and do that later, we would direct you to our tutorials on our nextPYP help page. And then we just included here how to get the data. You guys should have had this in email before. This is more for recording purposes later. The compute resources that people are going to have for the practical, if you're using our instances, you'll have access to these resources. Either you'll be on instance number 9 or instance number 10, and those have slightly different allocations, but we've included those in the chart here. We're not going to run any operations requiring the use of GPUs today, so no RTOML, things like that, because we do not have enough GPUs to support 40 people running on all of them. And then we're going to use pre-calculated results for some of our very time-consuming steps, like our particles alignments, things like that. And access to these instances, if you're using our lab instances, is going to remain active until Sunday evening. So you have some time to run it after the conclusion of the workshop if you need to do things later. And to reiterate, by the end of the practical, you should be able to recognize and operate nextPYP's web interface, import raw tilt series, run basic pre-processing operations, run multiple particle picking methods, and obtain a 3D structure from particle projections and particle frames. And outside this pipeline, you should be able to learn how to use on-the-fly pre-processing sessions for data collection. All right, now we're going to transition over to doing the pre-processing part of the practical. The part that I'm going to cover now is going to be the import tilt series and data pre-processing part of this. All right, so here's the pre-processing. So when you first open nextPYP, you should see this blank page here, and this is called your dashboard. Once you're in your dashboard, you want to create a project. So you're going to go over here to this button, create new project, and name it whatever is applicable for your data. For here, we're going to name this workshop. And once you've typed your name, you click create. And you should see this box populate here with the blue outline indicates it's already been selected. So once it's selected, you can click open. And that'll bring you to this blank space, which is your workshop space. Up here, you can see that you're in your workshop here. If you wanted to return to your dashboard, you can click this button to go back to the dashboard. And then again, we'll just click back into the project since we don't need to do anything on the dashboard right now. So click on the project and open again. So the first step that you want to do for any project is to import your data. So the first thing we're going to hit is import data. Tomography from raw data is going to be the option that we're using for things here today. And the first one that we're going to import is, you can see a little instruction thing here on the side, is we're going to work on 164 first. So tomography from raw data 164. So this is going to give us our path to raw data. And then I've included this here. That way, if people aren't keeping up with the clicking, you can kind of follow along on the written steps here. So location, click your search mouse here into your workshop folder, 164. And then we're going to go down here. And now we need to set the path to star TIFF. TIFF. And once you've set this in this area here, so you've typed in here and clicked this to set the file pattern, choose file pattern. And now you should see this location here matches what we have here. And there's no gain reference for 164, so we're not going to put that in. I'm going to click these open now, that way you guys can see them. But there's no gain reference for 164, so we're going to skip that tab for now. Microscope parameters, we have over on the side, it's 1.35 for our pixel size and 300 kilovolts. And our tilt axis angle is 85.3. The resources on our tomography import, we're going to leave at default. So if you click to this tab, just don't change anything here. But just to go back through real quick, we should have our raw data with our location to our 164 tilt series. Gain reference, we're not changing at all for 164. Our microscope parameters, we should have our pixel size, acceleration voltage, tilt axis angle set, and resources we're not going to change. So once we set all that, we're going to hit save. And the block should pop up. There we go. So the block is there, and you can see this star asterisk here indicates that this is an out-of-date block. I've changed parameters, and so now if I want to put it in date, I need to run it. So I'm going to come up to the right over here and hit run. And now this should be checked, the block that matches here. Start run for one block. And now that's going to start running as indicated by the cog here. And now we have a job here as well. So the cog turning here is indicating that that's running, and it'll let you track what progress you're on. So this clock here means that it's waiting. So something up here needs to happen before this can start. All right, so while our raw data is running, we're going to go ahead and start to set up the pre-processing block for this, just to show you it's kind of easy to get blocks started while previous blocks are running. You don't need to sit here and wait for that to go. But so we're going to start by just taking you all the way through 164, and then we'll go back and do the others. So, all right, so pre-processing block, the way that we're going to start this is to click on the tilt series here. Oh, and our raw data block just finished, but we'll come back to that in a moment. But so click on this blue button here, and that allows you to do things with the output of this block. So the output of this block, like Jeff mentioned yesterday, is here. So that's tilt series. So now we're going to click pre-processing. So here shows you the options for downstream block. This is the downstream block we're going to pick, pre-processing. And that'll open up this panel that you should have seen in slides yesterday, which will allow you to set all your parameters for your pre-processing. So for frame alignment, we're not going to be changing anything for 164. That's in here. If you don't see it under a certain tab, that means we're going to leave it on default. So we're going to leave it on default for frame alignment. It's going to work well for this method. And we'll talk a little bit more about frame alignment parameters when we're doing 987 and we need to change some of them. So next, I'm just going to click over to our next tab, which is CTF determination. And there you can see we have 164 here, so we're going to change that. We're going to update the max resolution here to be 5 angstroms instead of 3.5 as the default. And that's all we're going to change in this tab. And we're going to show you tilt series alignment, but we're not going to change anything here because 164 fiducials is a good alignment method to do for that. So we're going to leave that. And we're also not going to change anything for tomogram reconstruction here. We're just going to leave it for 164. But we are going to update our pre-processing resources for 164. And I'm going to skip over these particle detection tabs for now because Ye is going to go over particle detection with you. I'm not going to cover that. But resources, we're going to go threads per task to 41. And then like Laura said yesterday, rule of thumb is 4 times memory per thread, so 164. For the merge task, we're going to go to 5 and 10. And then we're going to hit save and we're going to hit run. And that'll run the pre-processing for 164. And while that's running, we're going to look here at this raw data import block for 164. You can click on it to get a more blown up version of that image. And you can see here the image looks how we might expect. These images were already gain corrected before we imported them, so we didn't have to add a gain reference here. So it would be weird if we thought that was wrong, considering they were already gain corrected. But you can see one image here, your fiducials, your virus-like particles, and click out of that. And as you can see, the tomography from raw data block ran pretty fast. It's real lightweight, and you just get a quick snapshot of your data before you go into pre-processing. Pre-processing, the job is running, and first it'll launch, and then it'll go to the split jobs. And the split jobs, it's now running these 2 tilt series in parallel, as you can see with the 2 here and the cog for running. If you click on these buttons here, you can see your logs live. So it'll have the stream here that allows you to view what is in the stream is a random tilt series it'll pick to show you the log for, which is pretty useful for just visualizing progress of how the parallel processing is going. If you click over to the logs button here, at first it'll show you nothing because they'll only pop up here in the logs once they're completed running. But once they are done, I'll show you that a little bit more. But the stream will show you live running here. The logs will populate once they're done running. The cluster will send them to the web interface. Yeah. Additional things you can see in your logs tabs is you can see your launch info, did it work, what was the command used, and then also commands tab, you can see that here as well. You can also see your job number here, which can be useful if you do need to troubleshoot things and go into the cluster. So right now we can see it is aligning the tilt series down here. And again, we're just kind of taking you a little bit slowly through this 164, and then we'll pick up the pace to get through all of them for the 499 and the 987. But while we're waiting for this to finish, I'll show you another feature in our interface. So this up here is our help page. So if you go ahead and you click this button here, it'll take you to a new tab. So you're not going to lose your workspace here. It's still up here, but you're in a new tab and you can see things like our installation instructions, our tutorials that I mentioned if you want to further process the HIV sample or the purified ribosome sample, user guide, information about need help, things like this. It's a great reference to go to. Additionally, whatever version nextPYP you're doing, you can update your help page docs to be consistent with that version. So we're going to exit out of that. And our split job is still going, but we'll check on how that is here in our logs. So it looks like it's doing CTF estimation now. So everything's looking good. So one of our tilt series is done. So because one of them's done, we're going to click into our pre-processing block to go and look at that. So if you just click on the block, it should open this page. When you're only processing a couple of tilt series, this plots page looks a little bit odd because you're only seeing the 1 dot for each tilt series. But when you're processing, say like 20, 60, 100, however many you're doing, This plots page becomes more and more useful because you can see general trends in your processing results. Next to the table page, this will show you any tilt series that are done. If you click on it, you can visualize your tilt series here, your 1D CTF profile, and your 2D CTF profile, all in one place without having to click through. Lastly, the gallery is going to look a little bit weird because we only have one tilt series here now. Oh, there, the second one finished. So you can use the gallery to be able to click onto whichever tilt series you want. So I'm going to click on tilt series number 1, and that'll take us to the tilt series information page. So here it'll open on your tilts page where you can see your frame alignment results. And here, if I hover over each bar, it'll take me through the tilt series here, with being from 0 degree up to 60 degrees, and then the other way. You can also click over to your alignment tab. You can see the motion trajectory and watch a quick movie. And the alignment looks pretty good. We don't see things jumping around. We're going to click over to CTF. And this CTF is this profile that I mentioned yesterday, where you have your tilt axis angle, your defocus estimation for each angle, your CTF score for each angle, estimated resolution, and change into focus. And as you move over here, you can see it update and give you the results for each tilt angle. You can also click on one of these if, say, you want to move your mouse around and not have it keep changing. So if I click, now it's not going to change, even if I hover and I'm just looking at my 24-degree angle. And then to get out of that, I would clear selection. Here is how you see those 2D plots for all the angles that I showed you yesterday. And again, same thing for the 1D plot. And then you can go look at your reconstruction. You'll see how to do particle picking in this interface a little bit later, but you can see your Z-stack, you can play a movie, look through it that way, or you can scroll through as you would like. And you can see your side projection here and roughly how thick your sample is using your fiducials. Yeah. All right, so now we've gone through our results thing a little bit. We're going to go ahead and click back to our project page here. And we're going to import our data for 499 and 987. So 499, 9. So import data. Again, tomography from raw data. Location. I'm going a little bit faster now here. That way we can get these processed before the end. But go ahead and use those instructions on the side if you need to. 499 does have a gain reference, which is in that same folder. It's the DM4 file. Use file, and we're going to flip that vertically. Microscope parameters for 499. Pixel size is 1.7. The acceleration voltage is again 300 kilovolts, not 399, 300. And the tilt axis angle is again 85.3 degrees. Again, we're leaving the resources on default, so save. And we're going to move that down here and run. All right, import data one more time. Tomography from raw data. Now we're importing 987. So 987 is in this 987 folder. This is now not TIFF, it's an MRC file. So make sure you don't type TIFF again, type MRC. There's no gain reference for 987, but the microscope parameters are down here. That'll open for me, thank you. 0.64 is the pixel size in angstroms, 300 kilovolts acceleration voltage, and now our tilt axis angle is a little bit different at negative 94.73 degrees. Again, we will leave the resources at default, hit run, start run for one block. All right. And as that's running, we're going to set up the pre-processing. So we've got all our data imported. So I'm going to leave that open for just a second in case you guys are behind me, but I will close it in a minute. So tilt series, click that to open our pre-processing block. And we're working on 499 right now. 499 is not going to change anything for the frame alignment. For the CTF determination, we are going to update the max resolution to 8 angstroms. For the tilt series alignment, we're not going to change anything for 499. For tomogram reconstruction, we are going to show you our erase fiducials feature, and we're going to hit show advanced options. So now you'll see a couple more things will pop up in blue. Those will be the advanced options. We're going to uncheck reshape tilt images into squares. So we're not going to do that for 499. The resources, we'll need to update that for pre-processing. Again, we were doing 41 threads per task. This is if you're using our instances. If you're using your own, you could use these, or if you feel strongly that different settings are better for you, you could do that. All right, so save, and then we're gonna hit run on the pre-processing. Lovely. And while that's running, we're going to set up, all right, I'm gonna set this here, and then I'm gonna stop moving that around on you guys. Okay. So I'm gonna hit tilt series, pre-processing, and now we're setting up 987. And if you remember when we hit the import, 987 is using MRC files, not TIFF files. So we need to update this frame pattern to be consistent with that. So change from TIFF to MRC. And that should be all we're changing in the frame alignment. Yep. That's all we're changing in frame alignment. For CTF determination, we're going to update our max resolution to 12. We are going to update for tilt series alignment, and that's because 987 is lamella, so it does not have fiducials in it. So we're going to need to change to patch tracking. Again, like we said, we're not going to use anything requiring GPUs today, so we're going to do iMod patch tracking, not our Tomo patch tracking. All right, so now we've got our method for tilt series alignment set to iMod patch tracking. We're going to go to tomogram reconstruction, where again, we're going to click that show advanced options button here. You'll see these blue ones appear. Uncheck reshape tilt images into squares, because these are lamella, they're not squares. And then we're going to change the thickness of our reconstruction to be 3072. That's going to be a little bit thicker because this is a thicker sample. And our binning factor for reconstruction, because this is a thicker sample, we want to up the binning. So we're going to go to 12. And then again, changing the resources in this block to 41 threads per task, 164 memory per task, and then to our merge task 5 and 10. Hit save, back up to run. That should still be checked. Start run for one block. And now it's going to queue it. So our 499 pre-processing is still running here in the split jobs. So our 987 pre-processing is going to wait here until 499 is finished. And while that's waiting, we're going to show you a couple other features that we have in this interface. So one is that you can rename your blocks. So we're going to do that. That way people in later sessions don't have to struggle to remember which one we're doing. So this one is 10164. This one, we're just going to rename to 10499. Rename. Clicking on the 3 lines in the upper right corner of the block. Rename. All right. So now these are nice and organized for the next session. Be able to see that. Some other things you can do in this interface would be if you wanted to say I want to try 2 different particle picking methods on my sample, I can copy this block and keep all my parameters the same, except, you'll see particle picking later, so I'm not going to go into that now. But say you want to do particle picking, or I want to try a different CTF determination. So now I'm going to try 8 on this one, and I hit save, and now I have a new block that has all the same parameters as this block, except for the one thing I changed, and then I can run that, and things will be consistent. So it allows me to more easily compare without needing to write down and rewrite all the blocks as well. When you do copy a block, you will need to run that block. It's not going to copy a completely run block. So even if I left all the parameters the same, I would still need to hit run after I've copied this block. But say, I didn't actually want this copy blocked, I can go in and delete that block as well. And it'll just check to make sure I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sure I want to delete it. Yes, I do want to delete it. We don't want that here. But yes, so we're going to go ahead and click into our 499 preprocessing since we have a couple of those blocks that are done here. So now we're opening into our preprocessing block, viewing our tilt series, our reconstruction tab. So this is one of the 499 tilt series that have been finished preprocessing. And you can click through here. You can see the fiducials have been erased successfully. So we don't see those fiducial markers. I personally like to use this scroll bar, but if you are partial to videos, you can also just set the video hands off, kind of watch it go however you would like. Yeah. And now we can see CTF stuff for this, click whatever. And then we mentioned that you can export SVG plots for these. We use Plotly here, and you can do that here in this little camera snapshot thing. You can download your plot. And then there's a couple other tool features here that when you get more into the interface, you can play with as much as you'd like. But yeah, this download plot is generally what we use. You click that, and then it'll give you a SVG file here that you can open and see a nice vectorized image here that you can expand, and it's not going to deal with resolution image issues when you want to put it on things later. All right, so I know that yesterday some people were asking about that exclude tilt feature. So, oh, you go back down there, mister. All right. We're asking about that exclude tilt feature. The data set we have here that does have some of those dark tilts should be 164. So you go into your tilts tab and show all raw tilts. And this is going to show you all the tilts in that series. And then so we can see here, for example, there's nothing visible here. So we would click ignore and then exit out, and it'll remember that. So again, how I did that was I clicked on my preprocessing block, got into this interface, clicked on tilts, show all raw tilts, and chose to ignore it here. You can also see your motion trajectories, but again, the one that you do need to use to exclude tilts is going to be that raw tilts button. But you can use your other interfaces, show trajectories, show your CTF plots to kind of evaluate what things are going. Like, for example, this CTF plot looks pretty bad, which is consistent with what we were seeing in that tilt image with not being able to see anything. All right, so go back here. We're actually going to take a look at that other tilt series to see if that had any dark images as well. So we were just on tilt series 2. I clicked this button to navigate to tilt series 1, and then went back to the tilts tab and show all raw tilts. And tilt series, this one looks pretty good, so we're not going to ignore any there. We're going to go back to here. You can see our 499 block finished running, and then it went ahead and started the 987 block right away because it was in the queue. We didn't have to go back in and click things later. But yeah, that is finishing up. And as that's finishing up, we're going to could queue this block to ignore that tilt. but we'll show you how we would do that. So we didn't change any parameters here, but we did want to ignore a tilt. So you'll notice there's no star here. The block's not out of date, and I can't click this run button to get it to start. So what I need to do is I need to make the block runnable. So I click on the 3 lines here where we had our rename feature and our copy feature. And we're going to go ahead and you can hit make runnable. And now it gets this little recycle button symbol. Then you can hit run. And now it pops up in the runnable block. So when things have that asterisk, they'll be in the new or changed blocks area. So either you've just created the block or you've changed a parameter in the block. And then if for some reason, like excluding a tilt or something, you'd like to rerun the block, but you haven't changed any parameters, you will hit it in the runnable block, and then you could start run there. All right. So we do that. Are there any other line features we should cover? Okay. There's a couple other useful ones in here. So again, these are just the 3 lines on the very corner of the block. And one that we find very useful is this navigate to latest logs. So if you click that, it'll open whatever the latest log is here. If this instance is new for the workshop, so we're not able to, we don't have older runs here, but say I ran this block 2 weeks ago and now I want to go back and look at the logs to see what happened with it, you would click older, load older runs, and then the 3 lines and navigate to latest logs and it'll load it. We do this just to keep the web interface, running quickly, not bogging it down by loading logs that you don't necessarily need right now. Right, so there's that. And additionally, show file system location. If you need to go into the terminal to look at things, this is very helpful. You click show file system location and then copy, and now it's in your clipboard that you can just copy into your terminal. And you can get out of this by hitting either the X or OK. All right, so now that we've covered pre-processing, I think we have about 13 minutes that we can maybe take some questions if somebody needed to see something again while this last pre-processing block is finishing up. But yeah, any questions that you're seeing coming up, Alberto?
Not specific to the what people are trying to do. I think some people are having trouble keeping up. But so some were asking, I guess we didn't make the instructions available, but I'm been trying to answer that the settings are identical to what we have in the tutorial, and I put a link to the tutorial. The only thing that is not in the tutorial are the resources. So maybe you just want to reiterate what resources you're using.
Yeah. Yeah, the resources for the import blocks are going to be left at default. So I'm going to click in here and click edit so I can open up the panel of settings again. So for all the data import blocks, just leave the resource tab at default, don't change anything. And for the pre-processing blocks, again, the 3 lines and edit if you've already made the block. The resources tab, we are changing the threads per task to 41 threads per task, the memory per task to 164 memory per task, and that's just 4 times the threads. And then the other thing we're changing in this resource tab are the merged threads in memory, which we're changing to 5 threads and 10 memory in the merge.
Great. There's this one question about excluding tilts. So it says once you exclude the tilts, you need to rerun the block in order for that to take effect, and that's a question.
Yes. Yes, sorry. Yes should be the answer to that, right? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, which is why we went to make this runnable again.
Yeah. The follow-up is, are there any other parameters that are not obvious that have to be rerun manually? I'm not sure exactly what's the meaning.
Things that are not. Well, we'll click on our block. Yeah, so after you've run your block and can visualize your data, you decide you have some bad data, you want to exclude it, then you would need to rerun your block. This is just before you run the block, you haven't seen the data, so you wouldn't know to exclude it ahead of time, is why you need to rerun it. As far as for if you choose to exclude tilt series using this table, you don't need to rerun the block for that because they're going to be excluded from downstream processing. They'll still be in the pre-processing block. So you don't need to rerun if you exclude here. But here you might, well, we handpicked some data that looks good. That way we can get good refinement downstream. But if you did say have a really bad looking tilt series here, the CTF looked terrible, you really don't like your estimated resolution or whatever you have, you could exclude that using the exclude button here or the letter X on your keyboard, and then it'll take it out. But if you do want to keep that excluded, you then need to name the filter like workshop exclude. I'll add a space there to make that easier to read, exclude. If I could type today and then hit save, and now your list is saved and you can apply that list in downstream blocks. But we're not going to use this list, so I'm just going to delete it. Delete the filter, yes. So yeah.
There is another question about since 499 is not in the tutorial, I think some people are having trouble figuring out what the parameters for the import information were for that. If you just maybe just go over that one more time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, so 499 for our location, let me go up here and up again. When you first open this, it should default to kind of what your setup's default area is for people on our instances. This should be workshop. So you would click on this top one, Bartoslagi Lab nextPYP workshop, and that'll open it when you click on it. And then you're going to the file folder for 499, because that's the one we want to import, and click on it and it'll open it. And then we have all these files here. I've actually had that set, so we'll pretend that's not set now. But you'll see that when it first opens. And most of these are your frames, your TIFF files, but you also have your gain reference in here, and you don't want to include that in your frames. So you'll hit the wildcard, the star, and then .tif, and hit this button here to apply that. And you'll see the gain reference file disappear, and you can only see the TIFF files now. And you'll choose your file pattern, and then that should be there. 499 does have a gain reference, so again, you'll go into that location, which will default to here. Open your workshop folder, your 499 folder, and then select your gain reference and choose file. And then the gain reference for 499 needs to be flipped vertically to be applied correctly. That's just something we've tested and know, so we just give that to you here. So you would, there'd be default there, but you just click that to check it. And the microscope parameters, the pixel size for 499 is 1.7 angstroms. The acceleration voltage is 300 kilovolts, and the tilt axis angle in degrees is 85.3. All right, leave that up for just
Great.
a second.
Thank you.
Our resources are default. And save.
Great, thanks. I think that's useful. There's one other question that has come up a few times, and this is like, can you pause a run, or if you realize that you made some mistakes setting the parameters and now you change your mind?
Yes, you definitely, well, I wouldn't say pause, you cancel the run, but Yes, you can. So say I'm gonna hit run here, and that's gonna open the things that are available to run. And right now, it says new or changed is B3. I have a feeling re-clicking through the file system makes it think that I changed something. So we'll do that. And we're just gonna uncheck these right now. This, you can also use these buttons to check and uncheck. So say I don't want to run any of these, I can do that. But you can also check here. So we're just gonna run this B2, which is the 164 right here. So I'll hit start run for one block, and then say I'm like, oh, I know I said something wrong, I don't want to do it. I'm gonna hit this red cancel button. And then am I sure I want to cancel the job? Yes. And then it'll end that job. And that can be especially useful if you've set up a job that's going to take a long time to run, or you have jobs after it that you want to run, but you know something's wrong. One thing I would note is that this will cancel all the jobs I've set up in that run if I hit that box there. So say I want to hit run, and I'll start run for all of them. We'll try that. So when I hit this red cancel button, it's going to cancel all the jobs in that run. If a job has already been completed in that run, it isn't going to delete anything. It'll still be completed, but
Somebody's asking, thank you, Abby. Somebody's asking how, if you can show again, how did you change the name of the block?
yeah. So I changed the name of the block by going to the 3 lines here, and I hit rename. And then it'll open that, and you can type in whatever name you want.
Great.
And rename.
Some people are also asking if you can repeat the same thing you did for 499 for 987, because that's also not part of the tutorials.
Yes, of course. So 3 lines, edit to open parameters. 97 is the location. Workshop 987. And these are MRC files, so we've changed this file extension down here to MRC. And hit this button and choose file pattern. I'm gonna exit out of it, that way it's not thinking that I'm changing my parameter again, but for you who are setting it, make sure you hit choose file pattern. All right, and then there's no gain reference for 987, so you don't need to change anything there. For your microscope parameters, they are here. Pixel size is 1.64 angstroms. The acceleration voltage is 300 kilovolts, and the tilt axis angle is negative 94.73 degrees. And don't forget the negative on that. Yep, and then the resources are again default, so don't change them for the data import. And hit save when you're done. If you're like me and you're just showing it, you can just hit X or click outside of this box and it'll go away.
Okay. We have probably time for one last question. I don't know if there was anything else that I wanted to show within the session.
I think I've covered it.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then there's one question about, this is from somebody that is running on their own instance, and is asking whether, like, when they import data, whether it needs to be in the project directory or whether symbolic links can be used.
Symlinks are fine. I use them a lot. That way I don't have to move data around. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I think we should, this would be the end of this session. I just want to say that for those of you that are finding, a little bit hard to keep up, we are going through a lot of material. But we're going to have the session this afternoon, which is going to be one-on-one, and we'll be able to help you with specific problems. And then also you will have access to this, for those using our instances, you have access until Sunday. So that will give you some extra time to try to, go through all the steps. We are also going to try to see if we can, for the tutorial data sets, which is 10164 and 10304, that information is already available. The other information we haven't shared with everybody. So we'll see if there is a way that we can do that, maybe during one of the breaks today. So I think with that, thank you, Abby, and I think we can switch over to the next session.